once again joining of the Black Stitch Hockey Cast. Seems like I'm having a little bit of Wi-Fi issues, but it's all good. Looks like things are settling in. We're at a very eventful point in the postseasons right now as PWHL wrapped up this week. The Memorial Cup is set to wrap up tonight, if I recall correctly. The Eastern Conference Finals and the National Hockey League wrapped up last night, and the Western Conference Finals could be wrapping up either tonight or by the end of the week. So we are definitely at a point where the postseasons of pretty much every major and junior will be at some level of completion in imminent stretch here. All right, and so much good hockey going on right now. So much quality. I mean, we may end up stopping a little short to give Liam time to really dig into that Saginaw London game tonight. Definitely on our radar a bit since the people of Instagram have spoken and I think are very much fiending for Liam's takes on that game.
Yeah, also want to give some credit to some of those prospect-centric accounts on X who have really engaged with some of those stories and driven up the visibility, especially with regards to the Zane Parekh versus Sam Dickinson dichotomy that'll be on display one last time tonight, with them having already faced each other 11 times previously this year, combined between regular season and playoffs, Memorial Cup included. Um, and just that one last showing between those two very touted blue chip prospects in a very good defensive class. It's like the last and perhaps biggest impression that they either two are going to make on the scouts is how they perform in the biggest game of the year in the CHL. So we'll see what dominoes fall in the conversation and how that might influence draft order. You're not getting a bad, addition to your blue line at all with either one, but who is going to suffer from the Joel Embiid syndrome of the lights were too bright and which one won't? That's what we'll see more tonight than we have previously, even with there having been quite a number of big matchups between these two teams and those defensive prospects, respectively.
Oh,
Yeah,
absolutely.
I do love Saginaw's coach, though. I mean, that whole, we have guys who have been, working on the Rubik's Cube and can solve a Rubik's Cube, but we haven't been able to solve London yet. And I'm like, damn, dude. Great presser.
Yeah, I mean, you love a good coaching duel. You love a good back and forth series. Um, and the little bit that I've been able to take in from the games they've played against each other, both teams. There have definitely been a lot of nights where London's game plan definitely came up big, and obviously there were a few nights where Saginaw really found a way to break through. But I mean, just a quality matchup. It's really what you want to see in the Memorial Cup for casuals like Damien and I, where you see two teams that you can really say are objectively at the top of the mountain of the league, the respective overarching league that they play in.
Yeah, we had the proof of of just where Chris Lazare's Saginaw group stands and how even though they fell short of getting some additional hardware, they were by and far the better squad than every other team across the 60 team umbrella organization, other than their adversaries, like, well and above, like a Moose Jaw squad that had Denton Matejchuk, Jagger Fergus, Braden Yeager, Matthew Savoy, and plenty of other options. You know, that won their league championship pretty convincingly. Like Saginaw overcame a lead against them first time around, then demolished them 7-1 with the berth for that on the line. It's like this was all the demonstration you needed that both of the two best teams across the entire CHL occupied the OHL's Western Conference this year. And now it's only right that we see them again under these circumstances.
Absolutely, looks to be an absolutely phenomenal uh, matchup game championship. And watching the Rangers Panthers game last night, I saw shades of, ironically, um, between the two playoffs clinching games that I watched this week. There was a lot of stark comparisons and contrast to PWHL Boston's unfortunate defeat at the hands of PWHL Minnesota, and also, strangely enough, the Rangers' defeat at the hands of the Florida Panthers in Game 6. Coming back to, the value of coaching, and just, once Boston got down 1-0 in their game against Minnesota, it really seemed like Boston got very simple with their attempts to hit a stretch pass across multiple zones against a great defensive team in hopes of springing something open. It just didn't fucking work. And on a team that, if you've seen our last article, only had 2-star players in a league where everybody else had 4 or more, if you're not able to spring that stretch pass, clearly you don't have a lot of options to claw your way out of the deficit that Boston was in. And it was very odd as Laviolette's team last night against Florida pretty much fell into the same exact trap after that Sam Bennett goal, where they were just looking for the stretch pass to spring somebody, anybody with anything. And just, as we saw how that game went, the Rangers kind of ended up in a very similar spot where Igor Shesterkin and Aaron Frankel were absolutely fucking phenomenal for their team down the stretch. But you, you can't expect to win scoring 1 to 2 goals a game, and it catches up to you real quick.
Yeah.
I will say, though, there's a lot more questions for PWHL Boston moving forward than the New York Rangers. It's clear and obvious for the Rangers that they don't really need to make a whole bunch of fucking adjustments in the off season. I mean, sure, they're going to need to figure out a way to get more systemic offense and be better 5-on-5 than they were this year. I did talk about this, and it's been pretty open in criticisms of the Rangers that, when you're the President's Trophy winners, but you're only about the 19th most possession efficient team at 5-on-5, you're only going to get so far, just like, the Vancouver Canucks being in the bottom 10 percentile of the National Hockey League in scoring chances. You can only take things like that so far, so at least the road ahead's pretty fucking simple. Get guys who can play pretty well 5-on-5. With the free agents coming, free agent class coming up, not going to be a lot of expensive 5-on-5 middle six, bottom six players. So at least for the Rangers, and I mean, I don't really know about the Canucks, but for the Rangers, there's definitely a path to replicate their success this year. On the other side, for PWHL Boston, I'll be honest, as a PWHL fan and all the things we do for the league, when 60% of your league are about to become free agents at the same time, about 10 days after the draft, I'm not
Yeah.
going to really try to hypothesize anything. It would pretty much be it's kind of like riding a unicycle while juggling flaming knives and trying to throw them precisely across the Atlantic Ocean and hitting Stonehenge. the chances of me doing it effectively are so close to zero that the best I could do is come up with a really questionable idiom on the spot. I'll say
Yeah,
this, that reference I just made was about as logical as any predictions I could possibly try to fucking make.
yeah, yeah. That's gonna be really, really interesting. I have no idea, man.
Yeah,
I mean, all we know is like most of the teams, so at least their top line and their goaltending looks pretty good. Besides New York,
yeah.
arguably, because both of them, obviously are going to be up. But I don't know. I mean, if there's one signing that I am expecting, I am definitely expecting New York to resign Schroeder. I mean, after her posting the second highest save, like it just makes sense. Everything else, I have no idea.
I will say, and I'm gonna circle back to this in my big finish later, but I know it's unofficially confirmed that Boston will have a blue line spot opened up. Um,
Right.
shout out to I think it was Matt Connor from the Boston Globe reporting on this news first, but also kind of a questionable piece of journalism from our boy Ian Kennedy at the Hockey News. Um, I find that both of their descriptions of this player's future are not one and the same, and I do think the Hockey News are putting out the term retired based on the report coming from the Boston Globe does not seem like it perfectly
Right.
aligns.
Right. I
Um,
thought the same thing.
those two things are mutually exclusive. Are you know Yeah, like just because somebody accepts a coaching job elsewhere does not necessarily mean that their career is over. I think that was a pretty substantial leap in logic,
Yeah.
especially as the player themselves has also not stated what her future is publicly yet. So also a little bit of questionable journalism from the Boston Globe, even coming out and implying this
Yeah.
without having the coaching destination outside the city that is taking place in.
Right.
But either way, you got to show love to an HV71 legend.
Yep. She's also only 25, right?
27.
27. I was off by two.
So to assume, a 27-year-old is retiring because they're doing some fucking. I'm not even gonna include it in my. I'm not even gonna say the player's name. I'm just gonna beat around the bush, and people can do their own research.
Yeah.
Just because a 27-year-old accepted a coaching job while she also runs a fucking player development camp in her home city, took a coaching job, does not mean that this player is retired. I mean, Amanda
Yep.
Kessel took a year off from hockey from concussions, and there was no narratives about her retirement. So, like, definitely a little bit of weird journalism.
Yeah.
I I do like that you did touch upon that though, because that's been one thing with the draft that I mean, obviously we've talked a little bit, obviously the last few days kind of about the draft and how amped we are because again, I mean, top four picks are all phenomenal and it's gonna be an interesting draft. Obviously, again, we have a couple of interesting scenarios. Obviously, with Claire Dalton? No, I don't think it's Dalton.
I mean,
I think
Dalton, I believe, Dalton's a free agent, as is Dubois, but neither of
yeah.
them are draft
There's
eligible.
somebody who I thought was on Montreal. Maybe I'm getting him confused, but I know that Abby Boreen's another one who has to go into the
Um,
draft after winning the cup with the Walter Cup with Minnesota, which is pretty wild. But yeah, I'm really. I mean, there've been links to Amanda Kessel being either going to New York, Boston, or I believe um, a third team super highly. Obviously, again, that's been the big thing, though, is obviously between the 1 year off of hockey and obviously the concussion history. Well, I mean, for me, I still have a feeling a lot of projections I have seen her go very early in the second round. So, again, it definitely does kind of fit with, kind of expectations right now.
I think the player you're thinking of who is forced eligible for the draft is Dawu, but Dawu
Yeah.
she's not gonna declare for the draft due to her current life situation, is my understanding. So she's pretty much good for about 6 to 10 Montreal regular season games a year until something happens with that, and it's a really tricky one. obviously she won't declare for the draft because she literally wouldn't be able to play for any of the other 5 teams.
Yeah.
And even then, her full-time availability is questionable, which makes her, maybe we'll have an answer in a couple of years when salary cap changes, the potential expansion. But for right now, Daewoo's kind of in a bit of an Ouroboros pattern here of a limited theatrical run for Montreal as their 6-star player. What a reference point that is. Man, if only there was somebody out there who, was figuring out star caliber offensive production for the PWHL.
Dude, I still love how like dead ass Brittany Howard, is 28, got a coaching job, and did she announce her retirement, or was that the same thing with the them saying that she retired?
I didn't even really look
Seems like
into
she
it.
was the first player that had any news about her retiring at 28. But I mean, she was the most average player in your model, right?
Yeah, she was the true average offensive producer for the entire league. She was dead ringer on PPG for true average. So yeah, with her again, she didn't formally retire once
Yeah.
again. But to be fair, to the credit of Ian Kennedy, once again, he worded this one a little bit better of implying that she was stepping away from professional. She will complete her final season of professional women's hockey as an athlete to transition to a coaching position in the Pittsburgh Penguins elite junior
Yep.
program. So, the word retire was not thrown about this time.
Yeah.
And also, unlike the other player who will not be named in this particular instance, we know what program that Howard's going to. We know what she's coaching. We know what the schedule looks like. Like in the word again, the word retirement is not anywhere in the article of good journalism of we have all of the facts and we can come to a conclusion versus
Right.
the other player. We're literally going off of a one-liner from the Boston Globe from another journalist is definitely a little bit ticky-tack to jump to conclusions there.
That's some Hector Longo shit.
Yeah, in the words of Hector Longo, in the years 2009, 2011, 2012, 2014, and 2017, I think it's time the Patriots trade Tom Brady.
Literally what I thought of.
But we love Ian Kennedy, even if this time he's tripped himself up a little bit potentially. He's been a pretty good source of content in women's hockey lately. Outside of us, the Ice Garden, and Corrine Haynes. Not too many people who are as devoted and dedicated to reporting on the league and doubling down on my shout out to the Ice Garden for being probably the most, let me rephrase, being the least controversial and definitely the most seasoned and savvy of them all because they've been doing this for so many fucking years. Props to them. I'll always give it, and it's not just because they're also a New England-based publication. If they didn't cover it when it comes to a Boston player potentially hanging it up, it's probably not true. So I'll wait for their report. Damn. If only there was a Colin Cowherd piece talking about this Florida Panthers team. Unfortunately for all of us, and I'm not going to talk about it other than telling you it's out there because it cracked me up a little bit listening to it this morning, is Colin Cowherd did pivot into the world of covering politics, and I just think that's great for him. I think it was really entertaining watching Colin Cowherd talk about something other than sports.
I just think, by the way, Bill Simmons, it's not like he's becoming a brain surgeon, and you know the rest. And the ESPN executives certainly haven't forgotten either, I'm sure.
I mean, I'll be real. Based on the content I've heard in the last 7 to 10 days, and I'm very I'm straying off the hockey path a little bit, but I'll still take Colin Cowherd covering politics over Draymond Green on Inside the NBA. At least Colin Cowherd's not fucking up chemistry that existed before he got there. Yeah,
R.I.P. NBA's TNT coverage.
like god damn. At least when the NHL brought in guys like Patrick Sharp and Kevin Bieksa and PK Subban. These guys had at least some level of a natural chemistry and likability with the guys that they were on a fucking panel with, and clearly like could accept the fact that they're here. What Draymond lacked that PK has is when PK was invited on, and when Sharp was invited on, when all those other guys were invited on in years they didn't win. We lost. We lost for a reason, and we have good things to add. And I listened to Draymond talk, and it's almost like he's just completely unaware of the fact that he's on this panel because he's not the player he was 5 to 6 years ago. And he can't accept the fact that his time has passed.
Yeah, well, at least with TNT's contract termination, we know he has been denied a spot at transitioning into that role full time in that particular context, because unfortunately, that very good product will now no longer exist, as I have been lamenting for a while now, ever since that was confirmed.
But at least on the good side of former players, watching JJ or listening to JJ Redick just absolutely lay into Felser was beautiful, man. And I only really doubled down on that because, as I love to say, in the wise words of Mark Cuban, which is really who Reddick was echoing in that conversation. Oh, the other team, the Mavericks wanted it more than the Timberwolves. They worked harder than the Timberwolves. And if the Celtics are lazy, the Celtics are gonna get outworked. You stupid motherfucker! It doesn't work. No top tier professional team is getting outworked by the other team. Yeah, no, neither side wants it more. It's the most bullshit rhetoric in professional sports. Like, I'm so fucking sick and tired of hearing they wanted it more. I'm sitting there watching the PWHL Boston game, listening to people, Minnesota just wants it more. They're skating circles. Or no, they're a faster fucking team, and they have a better coach, and they have a better strategy, and they have a better system that they modified, and they got a 1-goal lead off of a fucking grinder play. They didn't want it more. They didn't out hustle the other fucking team. Like, and I still listen to people fucking echo that narrative, and it just absolutely just pisses me off. Like, sure, you can make that argument in juniors, you can make that argument in high school, and fuck, you can maybe even make that in like Division III collegiate sports. Maybe, probably not, but you could make it at the lower echelons. In any fucking Tier 1 pro league, it's not a thing. There are times where one team is just better. It's a better game plan. It's better execution than the other. I mean, like it's not
Yeah,
like the Rangers didn't want it more than the fucking Panthers. It's not like the Stars wanted any less than the fucking Oilers. Like,
yeah. I mean, I think work rate is an attribute that's included in scouting evaluations for valid reasons, but like you're not gonna see full scale group lethargy when like guys are competing for not only coveted championships, but like think it on this, like you get a performance bonus like that scales up further you go. Like why would you got like pass up willingly the opportunity for more money based off of your performance as a group? Uh because you didn't want it enough, and when that is literally your job.
yeah, like it blows my mind that we still have radio hosts and TV hosts that sit here and fucking like that peddle this narrative. Like, I think about, Patrice Bergeron and, Brandon Carlo last year, Game 7, first round, getting beaten on the wall by Matthew Tkachuk. It comes out high to Carter Verhaeghe. Like, yeah, Matthew Tkachuk outworked them for 8 whole fucking seconds. But to be fair, Bergeron had a broken back. So Kachuk outleverages an old man with a broken back and uses his height advantage and his hockey sense to get beneath Brandon Carlo, free up a puck, find the open man, pivot back, get underneath Carlo, strategically position himself, read his team's offensive setup that they've practiced all year to leverage himself in the direct eyesight line of Jeremy Swayman so that the puck goes through unseen, untouched for the game winner. That's not a Matthew Tkachuk outworked the Bruins or Matthew Tkachuk, outsmarted the. This is a guy who understood his fucking system, executed his fucking system, and his teammate executed their system. They out-executed their opponent in a 10-second fucking window in a hockey game, and they won. Sam Bennett last night, first goal in that game, he fucking just takes a nasty. To quote Paul Bissonnette effectively, he rips a nasty piss missile through a screen off the rush and just beats one of the best goalies in the league clean. Like, it is what it is. The Rangers got beat by a better play that took all of 4 seconds,
Yeah.
and then over the next 59 minutes and 56 seconds couldn't find the fucking equalizer.
Yeah, every panelist take I heard during that whole process was talking about work rate and effort for the large part. It's like I'm watching this game. It's like the real thing that I'm seeing is just a lack of efficiency and transition, and that's not through a lack of trying. It's just it's over the course of team versus team gameplay, it's just not panning out for them. I can't imagine that the President's Trophy winners are suddenly just going to give up in an elimination game because they're down a goal. That's stupid.
It's like they were talking about they were talking about how Edmonton's depth is showing up better than Dallas's depth right now in the series, and I guess at the end of the day, it's just we knew from the jump that Dallas's defensive capabilities were good but not elite. We knew that. We know, and we love Jake Ettinger. We're big Jake Ettinger fans. We also know that Jake Ettinger, when he's hot, he's hot. When he's not hot, he's not hot. And when we knew Dallas's defensive depth and their ability to connect their D zone to their O zone when Harley and Heiskanen aren't on the ice is not as good as it is when they are on it.
Right.
So theoretically, there's a 20-minute window in every game for Dallas where if you get the top 9, any of Edmonton's exceptional lines, including defenseman Evan Bouchard, Edmonton can leverage matchups. Yes, Dallas has the deepest forward group 5-on-5 in the National Hockey League. But due to their defense, due to how good their best players are, the ability to overwhelm and get a mismatch with their middle six against Dallas still exists, and we've seen it. It's not that Edmonton's any deeper than Dallas, and this is the crazy part. It's the thought, maybe not for Davian, because he's been a Peter DeBoer denier up until about this series. Chris Knoblauch has just been beating DeBoer in matchups. That's all this series is coming down to in the last couple games.
Yeah.
Was he a finalist for the Jack Adams?
DeBoer and Knoblauch.
Oh, Knoblauch.
I don't think he was. He might have been.
Dude, completely.
we own
season around.
We knew it was a two horse race predominantly between Tocchet and Brunette.
Yeah, it was Bonus, Brunette, and Tocchet were the finalists.
I like what Bonus did. Yeah, he's done a great job for them.
Yeah, it only took Edmonton until 7, 8 years into McDavid's career to finally get a coach that actually could coach.
Yeah, I think he's one of the big things too that Edmonton's completely been ass with over the last few years is for Edmonton, every year they make the playoffs, goaltending is always the issue. Obviously defense too to an extent the last few years, but even this postseason, they still had their goalie issues as far as is Stuart Skinner the guy? Obviously they did play Calvin Pickard for a little bit. Obviously it went back to Skinner, and Skinner's he's made some good saves when he's had to this series. So it's kind of interesting just how much better of a job I think Knoblauch's done than Woodcroft ever did as far as switching between your goalies and still having everybody believing in the message.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the biggest factors for Edmonton's success this year is just really what Knobloch brought to the table versus all of his predecessors. And yes, I know I'm talking shit about Ken Hitchcock, who's um, probably a Hall of Fame coach, as well as Dave Tippett. But like, there's a reason both those guys are not coaching in the NHL right now, and it effectively boils down to their dinosaurs in the neutral zone trap era. Like, it just is what it is. And like, the thing that I really liked about Knobloch's career trajectory versus Woodcroft is Woodcroft had his success in the A show for a little while there, and like to his credit, like he he was a decent, coach during his time at Bakersfield. They won a championship while he was there. But like I look at a guy who had 4 years of head coaching experience at the AHL level in Woodcroft, and clearly, like Joel Embiid, the lights were way too fucking bright for him in Edmonton as the head coach when it mattered most consistently. But the difference with Knobloch is like he's been a head coach for almost, the last 15 years, and you look at his stops versus Woodcroft's, he was the head coach for, Kootenay. He was the head coach for Erie when McDavid was there.
Yep.
He was an assistant for the Flyers, and then he was the head coach for Hartford. So, like, when you look at his trajectory and his history as behind the bench, like, Knobloch is, for a guy under 50, he has such a wide dearth of head coaching and valuable coaching experience between both junior and professional that, like, it just makes, like, it's the first time Edmonton's ownership and general management looked at a coach and said, wow, you're not a dinosaur, and you're not just a guy we're hiring because we're out of options. Like, this is a guy who actually probably should have been a head coach probably 2 years ago. And if I'm being completely honest, probably should have been the Rangers coach this season. And I'm a little surprised. I'm not surprised that the Rangers opted with the more experienced Laviolette, because when do the New York Rangers not go for veteran talent at every position in their organization, with apparently the exception of Chris Drury, their current general manager? But, like, they had Knobloch sitting right there in their system, and they just elected to not move forward with him, which strange. But hey, I mean, if Edmonton wins the cup in the rain, and we obviously know the Rangers' fate, I think Drury will kick himself in the ass a little bit. But what do I know?
Just want to note that Hitchcock was actually a member of the 2023 Hall of Fame class, the same one that we had Barrasso go in on.
Mhm.
But
Future Hall of Fame, I knew Ken Hitchcock was a Hall of Famer without remembering he's already in the Hall of Fame. So as an
adjective was probable.
yeah, I mean, based on his resume, I mean, the thing with me is I think Hitchcock was a great coach, but I do have that stained memory of his time at Edmonton where he talked about, these Gen Z players, it's always what can you do for me mentality. And once Hitchcock pretty much outed himself as being out of touch and having no idea how to work with this era of player, really did put a bit of a stain on his legacy, if only in my mind. Which is fair or unfair, I don't know. John Tortorella is as old-timey as they get, and he hasn't said anything that fucking ridiculous.
No, like the only time he's hit upon an attitude even adjacent to that is just he's expressed awareness of the fact that he can't talk to players who were born in Gen Z in the same manner as the guy is that from like that Gen X / millennial borderline that he came up coaching in the same manner. But like he just said it like and as like in a matter of fact and like I'm okay with this kind of way, basically. Like he wasn't tone deaf about it at all.
We can't all be. I mean, it's crazy though that like Dave Tippett's fall from grace was way more. I mean, at least Hitchcock like had some real great runs toward the end there with St. Louis, where like we sat there and said, yeah, he's a dinosaur who's aging himself out, but like his best years are still his best years. Where like I've never understood the Dave Tippett thing. Kind of like I've never really fully comprehended the Babcock thing. Of course, Babcock has his flowers. Having won a Stanley Cup as a head coach, having taken the Ducks to a Stanley Cup, having Olympic gold medals. The thing with Dave Tippett I've never fucking comprehended is just the narrative about him being one of the best coaches in the league, who like made it to the conference finals twice, and otherwise was like, I mean, his whole run in Phoenix after the magical run in 11-12 like was absolutely disastrous. I mean, his run in Edmonton was fucking disastrous. Yeah, I don't know. Dave Tippett's one of those guys who has a lot of prestige on his name, and I'm not entirely sure where he earned it. Like, if anything, he should have, the year he won the Jack Adams for winning 50 fucking games in Arizona, I mean, in reality, I mean, when you look at that team, that Jack Adams award should be sitting on Brees Golov's dresser instead of in Tippett's house. But hey, who am I to judge? Which begs the better question, man. How do you chalk it up to coaching that you went a 50-win fucking team and only your leading scorer was Shane Doan with 55 fucking points? Like, how the fuck does that get you a Jack Adams when your starting goalie has a fucking 9.20 against a fucking 2.92 or 2.29? Pardon me. Like, that doesn't sound like coaching, guys.
No.
Especially because, the following year, if I recall correctly, they were equally, substantive, winning 41 games or 43 games in like I don't know. I just don't know how you look at consecutive years of having fucking 9-1 plus or 9-1-5 plus goaltending save percentages year after year after year and somehow think that's coaching. Did not expect to be eulogizing Dave Tippett tonight.
Yeah. I mean, I think with a lot of it too, though, is I mean, there's more respect than just through success. And I mean, I think with Dave Tippett, I think he's just, at least from what I've always recalled, I mean, I feel like he's always held himself to a high standard. I don't really ever really recall Dave Tippett really being a fucking little bitch about stuff. Like, I feel like he's always kind of tried to lead by example. He wasn't always the loudest dude.
Here's my thing with Dave Tippett, though. You look at the best years of his career. Marty Turco, prime Brees Golov, prime Mike Smith. We call that frog watch. When you have when you have three fringe Hall of Fame like Vezina caliber goalies, like it's like it's kind of like it's Claude Julien. Like, bruh, was he a good coach or did he just happen to get hired by teams with good goaltending?
And also like roster construction that like was configured like very, very specifically to lend itself to his coaching style, I would say. And like he just, yeah, sure, effective systems guy, but like I don't really think he was doing anything to get the next, uh, get guys to take the next step or get the most out of them. Really, like heck, that might have been his probably his biggest weakness in his coaching profile. And yet, for some reason, Montreal decided to hire him twice, so they took an L as well. The two coaching reunions in such like a short period of time is just pathetic on the Bergevin regime's part.
Dude, I can't wait for the Canadiens to fire Martin St. Louis for him to win a ring somewhere else and then come back. Like, we all know what's going to happen. St. Louis will get termed, win a ring somewhere else, and then somehow coach the Habs again because it's what the fucking Habs do.
Yeah, like I don't think, no matter what distinction there might be between Kent Hughes and Mark Bergevin, he's gonna he does seem like the sort of guy who is gonna toe the line and just like toe the party line when it comes to like upholding like Habs organizational traditions in that respect. Although at least I can say I respect him more than uh, the very minimal moral fiber that with which Bergevin managed that franchise. Because I mean, when you're telling guys like Jean Beliveau and Guy Lafleur, stop coming to our locker room, you're not authorized personnel, and you're just a distraction for the team. And that's not even the worst thing you've done from like a PR standpoint, then there's something fucking wrong.
Speaking of coaches that are retreading, on a more positive note, I guess to some capacity, a couple of Pittsburgh Penguins alumni in varying capacities. How do we feel about Disco Dan Bilesma getting another shot in the big leagues behind the bench out in the Pacific Northwest?
I mean, I'm stoked that he's bringing a female assistant coach with him.
There,
As far as
that's not official yet. She
not,
has not signed a contract.
not yet, but hopeful, very hopeful. But I don't know, man. I mean, I like Bilesma. I think when he first like the first few years with him, I thought he was really good in Pittsburgh as far as getting them energized and kind of playing their game to an extent. But I mean, like Liam had kind of alluded to in one of the previous pods a few weeks back, Dan Biles was not really great at keeping his team disciplined, and I mean that's kind of the biggest thing right now, where a lot of the top teams are disciplined teams. Like you're not. I mean, you look at like I don't think the Rangers. I think they had several dudes who had like sub 20 penalty minutes. You look at obviously Carolina with Slavin and some of the other guys on that team. So it's like with Seattle, it's one of those things, especially playing in that conference or that division. Like you can't give some of those power play units a lot of power plays.
That's fair. I mean, the way that I see it, and I have, I think I know what Seattle's looking at. I think they're approaching this. I think Seattle thinks Bilesma's going to do for them to some level of competency what John Cooper did for Tampa Bay, in the sense of like, Seattle has kind of zigged where the Vegas Golden Knights zagged, where they sat there and they said, "Hey, we have a lot of prospects. The Golden Knights don't have a lot of prospects. We've had a lot of our guys developing in the minors, and clearly goal scoring's been an issue. Bilesma brought creativity to Pittsburgh. He tried to bring it to Buffalo, but the player accountability wasn't there. He didn't know the young guys very well, and it was a fucking disaster." I think where they're angling is, when you think about, Seattle salary cap era going up, making big swings for their roster, I mean, to have that comfort level and that connectivity where, Shane Wright obviously being a franchise player for them is critical. I think Cole Lind, despite his age, could have a Troy Terry-esque run for them, coming off of 60 plus, like, superstar level production in the A show this year from Cole Lind in the minors. So I think they see, Stanley Cup champion has been in our minor league system. Like,
And currently
this guy can get
has them in the Calder Cup conference finals, making yet another impressive playoff run.
2 years, you know, 2 years in a row. He has the familiarity with a Riker Evans. Just, his familiarity with their high-end prospects that can integrate into what is effectively a well-constructed veteran youth roster that Francis has put together in a very short window of time.
Yeah.
Like, I definitely see the logic here. And, I'll say that Bilesma's efforts behind the bench in Coachella Valley have far exceeded his efforts in Buffalo, which tells me that unlike Mike Babcock, during his time away from the league as a coach, he clearly fucking spent time evaluating his own performance and probably collaborating and studying other coaches, working with people like in other organizations. During his time as an assistant in Detroit and his time with Charlotte, really, I think self-criticizing and self-reflecting and improving based on his recent results, I mean, and you look at his time in Pittsburgh, he has a more talented roster right now than he had in Buffalo when he steps foot in Seattle. Like, maybe those 2 years in Buffalo were a fluke, and he is a better coach than we think he is, or that I think he is, and maybe he pisses me off and ruins my life next year by making Seattle a better team than Anaheim. Uh, I'll allow it if only Shane Wright has a breakout season and outplays Slafkovsky, because I'm going to die on that hill.
Speaking of, for kind of a truncated version of Dev League catch-ups, Coachella Valley's actually up 2-0 in the Milwaukee Admirals in that Western Conference Finals. Now that we're officially in best-of-7 territory. Over in the East, the Hershey Bears have a 2-0 lead over the Cleveland Monsters in the ECF. So, could have ourselves set up for a phenomenal Calder Cup final. Maybe Hershey will win again with how ridiculous their lineup is, but we'll see. And meanwhile, in the BCHL, this past weekend, I just want to offer a congratulations to the Brooks Bandits for winning the 2024 Rocky Mountain Challenge, defeating Surrey 5-2 in game 1 and 4-1 in game 2 to sweep the best of 3. Some great hardware acquisition right off the bat for one of the greatest Junior A teams in their first season in the independent league that remains Canada's biggest NCAA developer and feeder system. So, hats off to all the guys on that team. A lot of bright futures on that squad. It should be exciting to track their NCAA careers.
Absolutely. Man, Milwaukee
Yeah, keep going.
Milwaukee got some decent college free agents onto that roster. Got to give them a little bit of credit there. The additions of Ryan Ufko and Ethan Hayter definitely caught me off guard. Not that Hayter's contributed anything in this playoff run, because obviously when you have the goaltending tandem that they already had,
Right.
you're not going to expect Hayter to really see any playing time. But it is pretty sick to see Ufko come over from UMass, suit up, get out there, do some stuff.
Yeah, we'll see how like that picture changes with like the proper Yaroslav Askarov era beginning in Nashville. I imagine in the pretty immediate future.
Yeah, I wonder with Nashville what they're gonna do. Really this year and next in the goaltending position. I feel like that's kind of the biggest internal thing that I'm kind of like waiting to see how the chips fall. Because with Saros only having 1 year left, it is a little dicey. Like, do you run Saros as your 1A and Askarov as your 1B next year and risk losing Saros for nothing in free agency, or do you make some ridiculous batshit crazy trade to get like a temporary 1A and other pieces back for Saros, and then you run Askarov as your 1B?
The question is like taking that second route, like no matter who it is, not to say it never happens, but like for a long time the goaltender market has had it set so like the position just doesn't yield the most amazing returns. So it's like I what sort of machinations would Trotz have to work out in order for it to really pay off?
I'm gonna make a pitch to you right now. I don't have the full trade because it just dawned on me. It just came to me. Prophetic wisdom from GM Christian. Hear me out. This is crazy, but hear me out. Nashville needs to send out a contract the other way to make this work.
Yeah.
Actually, they don't. They have a lot of cap space.
Yeah.
Jonas Corposalo and Brady Tkachuk to Nashville for Saros.
Man. Like, I think it's on paper it's kind of bizarre, but like but the thing is, like, when you look at the more like on the margin aspects of the overarching situation that Steve Stamkos faces right now in that gig that he's where he's really inherited just like such a mess, like he might actually be in a situation where he's leveraged just because of like the fact that uh, you know, we already have rumblings about the Brady Tkachuk discontent, some of which are disputed, and then on top of that, like, their cap space, their roster construction, the fact that Corpusalo hasn't worked out, where like there's at least like an intense conversation to be had, if nothing else.
And like, but I look at like if Stamkos is getting out of this hole, this is how Nashville has 26 million in cap space this offseason,
Yeah.
and nobody particularly valuable needs a new deal. So I sit here and say, can we eat $12 million to get a first line center in his prime and a backup goalie making $4 million a year to be able to run Askarov for 2 years, 1 year, pardon me, 1 year on his ELC, non-arbitration eligible RFA, and the only, like, Cody Glass isn't going to get a big deal in the next couple of years. Evangelista is not going to see more than 3 or 4. Like, Nashville's rebuild, they can afford to eat Corpusalo's contract to get a 1C.
Yeah. Definitely.
And then you have, Ryan O'Reilly as your 3C as a veteran, and Tommy Novak slides in as your 2C. Like, you're selling tickets, you're competitive, and you're not fucking up your rebuild. If you're Ottawa, you're all in on Saros. You're going to, you get Corpusalo off the books. You get Tkachuk off the books. You can afford to pay Saros for the rest of his prime for the next 5 to 6 years.
Yep.
You've got the forward group. You've got the decor. This is a trade where both teams can walk away better than they were. And that doesn't happen often.
Yeah. It's like, it's the only like thing that's like hinging upon like I feel like the biggest contingency factor here is like we don't really have a feel at this level. Obviously, he has like extensive experience below of what Steos' approach and mentality for is in terms of going for the big trade. And with this being his first summer in this job at this particular level, so it's like, is he the sort of guy or not? We don't know because we don't have a sample size for it yet. Not that that I can say just because of that it won't happen, or that he doesn't have like the pedigree or like the gall of like in a manner like that we've seen many times over with Don Sweeney. That he's definitely not cut from that cloth, but we just don't know yet.
I'm a big fan of no-brainer trades. Like when the Ducks went out and got Ryan Kessler, and I'd been talking about how the Ducks were going to go out and get Ryan Kessler for like 15 months before that trade happened. And I feel like, I'm an armchair GM, I know it, but like there are times where I just really question why teams are like, at the end of the day, and this isn't just Steve Stamkos. This is an overarching, every team in the league point of view. Like, if it's clear and fairly fucking obvious, you're not gonna get out of the hole you're in with the current system. Like, we talked about for years with the Rutherford era, or pardon me, the pre-Rutherford, Ray Shero era Pens of just making small time, unimportant, ineffective trades. And then Rutherford comes into town. Like, we're all, I think everybody on this panel is a Jim Rutherford enjoyer in the sense of, hey, man, if I just keep making small moves all day, nothing's going to change and we're going to suck. So I'm just gonna go fucking home run swinging every time, and if it doesn't work out, fucking who cares? Like,
Yeah, and like it's now, of course, we can get into like debate about how like debates about how this can always look the same on the margin for every respective situation, but like we have a model of success for it with Bill Zito's aggressiveness on the market and what that's done for his club uh, the last couple of years. And not even just on the trade market, but just having Gall in general. Like when Brunette's replacement for the head coaching gig was Maurice. Like not everyone was a fan of it, but it certainly has. Bill Zito has definitely been vindicated in that decision making, and it's just like, where is when are we just going to look at this for long enough, the Florida Panthers model, and think like, just have some guts when it comes to showing ambition and the way that you run a team.
in the words of Shipwright Tom, have some gusto. And on the note of building ships to sail into the new world, I think it's time we sail into the big finish this week.
Yes, just a quick Memorial Cup update. We're at like our first TV break in the opening 20 minutes. There's no score yet. Saginaw did have a pretty decent possession advantage, although that's helped that they were by the fact that they went on the power play first, thanks to a delay of game call on London. But the PK for London looks strong. They haven't given up a single goal in this tournament, as you would expect from Dale Hunter's very efficient squad that, very systemically competent and gets a lot of practice in, since those guys are using both special teams units a lot and are very good at both of them, just like the man himself in his playing days. Uh, but yeah, basically my take for this week. Oh, hello, Denver Barkey. Anyway, so I'm gonna call out a WHL franchise right now. The Everett Silvertips are really, really disappointing me with their own lack of ambition and just like taking initiative right now, because we still are looking for what the new head coaching and GM uh, configuration is going to look like pretty well into their offseason at this point. And moreover, they drafted Landon DuPont first overall after he was given exceptional player status. They still haven't fucking signed him to a scholarship and development program. How the fuck do you just like have these essential holes that need to be filled, this blind spot with a guy who's looking to be like the next great uh, shooting OFD, when you already have a phenomenal blue line core and just look like a great group overall, and you're just dragging your feet on making these important organizational decisions? It's like, you guys might be good, but in the long run, but like this lack of proactivity that I'm seeing from that front office right now is really making me side eye a bit here. You know, again, you gotta show some gusto if you're gonna compete in the dub, especially with teams like Medicine Hat, similarly on the rise right now, and having like a long timeline that they can operate within. Like I think that Everett can probably compete again for an Ed Chenoweth Cup in the near future. They had some bad luck on their side preventing it this year with injuries, but like they're really, really not starting this new era very impressively to this point, and I'm not going to back off of that until I see announcements confirming both of those things.
Yeah, it's pretty ridiculous. For mine, I just wanted to give some recognition. First of all, Christian, phenomenal job with both of those production models. Those are phenomenal, fantastic, love them. Sent it to our boy Alex Ferris. So just awesome. I think it's great for both leagues. I think it's really cool. It's been great to see a lot of positive feedback. So absolutely hammered it. But the other thing too is I just want to say, like, seeing Game 5 in Minnesota. I mean, in Lowell, even though Minnesota did beat Boston, like, just kudos to both teams, to both franchises. phenomenal experience. And again, just to the entire league, I thought the product was great. I thought just seeing them hoist the Walter Cup and just seeing how passionate, how excited. To me, it felt like, just like winning the Stanley Cup or any of these other hockey championships where they were just ecstatic. I mean, again, to your point too, Christian, it was pretty funny watching Ken LaCoin, who's like the shortest player on the ice, hoisting that thing first. That was great. But no, just so grateful and excited for the inaugural season and just to be able to see, just to see the season end and how great it was. So,
My big finish is really just excited to get the wheels turning on our end for content as we gear up for potentially a much more ambitious hockey season after the summer. Obviously, we all know the summer it's going to be a little moist with content from June to July now that we have the end of the Stanley Cup playoffs, but also the PWHL off season during the month of June, leading into the NHL hotbed until July 10th, usually about a week and a half after the free agency. From there, we're starting to or at least I'm getting excited to really figure out how we're going to be able to cover all of our leagues that we focus on. Really excited for the continuous expansion of Division III collegiate hockey with the additions of Misericordia and Keene State this year. Just more teams, more programs, more visibility, more for us to talk about on the D3 side, especially with the MASCAC fielding 8 teams this year with the additions of Riv and Anna Maria before the inevitable branch off for the LEC to come into existence. So just really excited for the future of D3 hockey.
Yeah. Kind of an odd crossroads for NCAA currently, but these short-term developments are, some of these things we've had an idea of what's the direction they've been going in. Been pretty excited about those, and the good news seems to be continue to be pouring in for now. Like, we'll see how it goes. Quick Memorial Cup score update. Not too long after that power play ended, Owen Beck, future Montreal Canadian, opened the scoring for Saginaw. They're up 1-0. Still a pretty sizable advantage in the SOG category. We'll see what Dale Hunter has in store for us as a response. If it doesn't get going this period, I'm sure whatever adjustments and like whatever speech he makes in that dressing room after one is going to catalyze something. Let's see if Saginaw can counterpunch like they have been capable of doing in this very intense and competitive matchup throughout the season. But yeah, great dialogue as usual. I want to give a shout out to, again, some of the people who've really been engaged with our content across the different platforms. The conversations that those interactions have prompted. You can expect one more wrap-up article from me. Sign off to the season by the end of the night. Within the next couple of days, my North American skater rankings will come out now that the dev season is effectively over at this point. Now I can say I've like thoroughly evaluated as many of the top tier candidates as I can, gotten a good look at everybody, especially on big stages and all of that, like this tonight with big conversation implications. Hello, Radek Bonk. Nice little shout out to very respected NHL alumnus, father of Oliver Bonk, key linchpin on that London D. Core. Yeah, thanks for tuning in. We'll see you again soon. Take care, everybody.